nice to meet you. My name is Roby Bellemans, and normally I make exhibitions and educational projects, and I do guiding. I also specialize in making exhibitions for children. And now I like to tell you about circular stories. What are circular stories? Well, it's a story that ends where it begins, and thus it can go on forever till we get to crunchy. So sometimes I have to drink because I have air conditioning here, and the air conditioning makes my voice a little bit ugh. So, circular story. This is one of my own circular stories. It's the Dutch version. It also has a French version and a Korean version, but it doesn't matter. I guess you also cannot read that. So, but the story is quite easy. There's a monkey, and he decides to walk, and then he meets his friend on a bicycle, and then they meet another friends, they had a car, and then they meet another friends with a train, and the train goes on the boat, and the boat is crossing the water, and on the other side of the water, well, they're still crossing the water, but on the other side they have to leave the boat, and then first the train goes off the boat, and then the car goes off the train, and the bicycle goes off the car, and then he got off the bicycle, he walked, and then he got tired, and then he sit down, and after a while he thinks, well, it's nice weather, maybe I should go for a walk. And then he's meeting a friend, and say, hey, how are you? Yeah, good, good. Oh, come on, come along, you can jump on my bicycle. And then so they went on, and then they're, hey, well, we know him, he got the car, oh, well, we jump, we throw the bicycle on the car, and so on and so on. So that's, this is the principle of a circle story. The drawings are made by Isabel van Duinen. She's now a friend of us. The story, how I came to make this book is like this. I used to have a gallery and a bookshop together with an artist, Joke van der Wijs. And friends of us, they have a farm, and they asked me, can you come and sit? It's open day, we invited a lot of people, and come and sit in the meadow to start to tell some stories. So I say, why not? Why Not is a book made by drawings of Friso Henstra. He's a Dutch illustrator, and when this book was published in the Netherlands, most of the people didn't know him. While at that time, he was already incredibly famous in the USA, all over the world, because he had gained also all international prizes, but they never published his work in the Netherlands. So I made a big exhibition, traveling exhibition with his work, and this book was published, and immediately it also got the golden medal in the Netherlands. So why not? I had sitting in the meadow, and then I start to tell this little story, because they came a lot of children and then other children, so I could tell the whole time the same story, it was no problem. And not long, a bit later, we were talking about friends of us, and one of them, also an illustratress, Gita Spain, she made this kind of drawings, and she said, oh, I got a niece. Is you allowed to make illustration for your story? And I say, yes, why not? Why not? So that's what happened. And then there was a book fair, and I met a friend, Philip Werke. He started a publishing house, Clavis, And he said, oh, we just start with books for very young children. Can we publish your book? Why not? And then they did so, and they even published in Korean and also in French and other language. So it was very nice to do so. Circular stories. The concept of circular stories is quite old, but we don't know how old, because those were stories told and nobody wrote them down. The first one that was written down, it was in 1700, it was in fact a German story, and it was Ein Loch ist in ein Eimer. And this story was sung also by children, and later it's translated into English, and then it became incredibly popular when Harry Belafonte and Odetta were singing it, and then it was called There's a Hole in My Bucket. And the most popular version, I think, is the Sesame Street version. Is so incredibly funny. You can find it on YouTube. And yeah, it's so fun. The story is very simple. He got a bucket, and then he said, Liza, there's a hole in my bucket. And then Liza said, yeah, well, fix it. And then he, oh, yeah, I can fix it. But with what will I fix it? And then she said, put a stick in it or something like that, and so on and so on. You know the story of it. It's so funny. At the end, he needs water again, and then he asked, yeah, but with what shall I get that water? With a hammer, in a bucket. Not with an hammer, what is the same? And there's, this is such a funny story. And everybody, almost all people know that. That's in fact, but it's a song story. So when you sing something, it's different when you tell a story. The written stories as a story, the oldest one is, I think, from 1842, something like that. And that was published in Indonesia by Willem Howell. He was a Dutch minister in Indonesia, and he was a friend with Multatuli. And Multatuli is one of the greatest authors in the Netherlands. He wrote that masterwork, so you should read it. It's called Max Havelaar. It's about colonialism, and so, yeah, you just have to read it. And he took that story in his book. It's called the story of the stonecutter. The stonecutter. And it came to the Netherlands. Not so much later, we find also a certain circular story from Grimm, in the book of Grimm, and it's about a fisherman and a fish. Pushkin also has this story, and other people also have. In India they have a version with a bull who is well built, and it's the same concept, same idea of the story. The story is like this: the guy has a fish, and then the fish, oh, let me live, and then I will help you. You can do a wish, and then he said, yeah, why not? He also knows this. He didn't know that book, but it's also why not. So then the guy said, oh, what do you wish? And then, oh, I would like to have a little bit more nice house and maybe some nice clothes for my wife. It's okay, said the fish. So he came home, and then his wife wearing a nice dress, house beautiful, and then he said, yes, it's nice. And then he said, what happens? And then, yeah, he told the story about the fish. And then she said, why didn't you ask more money? Go back, go and ask money. And he, okay, he went to the fish, and then the fish said, okay, no problem. And he came back home, found some money, and then he said, is that all? That it's little, why not more? Go back, go back. So this went on and on and on, and every time she never was happy. She always wanted more and more and more. At the end the fish gets so tired of it, and then he said, "You go back home, you will see." So then the fisherman went back home, and then the beautiful house was gone, the car was gone, everything was gone, and his wife was wearing an old dress again. So yeah, if you want too much, you get nothing. So it's a circle story, it has some moral, and it ends where it begins, but it's quite different with the stone cutter. Because the stone cutter, this is a story, I must say, those are the illustrations made by Joke, based on the story I made about it. I rewrote the story a little bit, well, a little bit more, and well, I have some fantasy. And she used to, for this, I made some pictures when I was in Taiwan, in Taipei, or near Taipei, and I saw a stone cutter, so there I made some pictures, and she used them to make this illustration. It's cutting. I love them. And here you see already the whole story, because he's working, and then the sun shines, and then he thinks, oh, I want to be the sun, because the sun is so much better, and then, wow, he was the sun suddenly. And then there came a cloud, and then he said, wait, cloud, what are you doing there? And then, oh, I want to be the cloud. And then he was a cloud, and then he could hang in front of the sun, but then there was something, the wind, and then the wind was stronger than the cloud, and then he was blowing away everything except the big water down, and then he said, oh, the water, and then he became the water, and the water was, but there was a big mountain. And then, yeah, that big mountain was so strong, and then, yeah, you know, I don't know if you ever have been a mountain, but in my days I felt sometimes like I was a mountain, and then later I lost some weight. But then you're a big mountain, and you sit there, and the sun shines, and the wind, and everything is nice, and then one day you feel so, and then you think, well, what was going on? And then you feel, hey, somebody is cutting parts of me. And then he thought, when somebody is stronger than a mountain, I want to be that person. And that's how he became himself. And then he thought, yeah, it's evening, so I think I will go home. And he went very happy home. So that's a bit different concept as with the other. But you see, on the illustrations, I made it very lively, and Joke, she made very beautiful illustrations. The Dutch title is called En toen kwam ook die wens uit. In English it's And Then That Which Came True, and it's translated by Jos van Renswoude. He made an incredibly beautiful translation, and you can see, well, yeah, you see the illustration. And the English version is used by Ante to make a Vietnamese version of it. I made several stories because I love to make stories. On a certain moment, yeah, sometimes that happens. I became director of the brand new Terracotta Park and Museum in the center of Vietnam. It's the biggest in Vietnam, near Hoi An, and it's next to a pottery village. And in the museum, we had a dog, King, and I had an intern from the Netherlands, Malou Kortleven, and I told her my story about him, that he always went to the village, and then when he heard the whistle or went in there, and then he was looking for chicken to eat, and when he found it, he eat, and then he fell asleep. So she made a very, very funny circular story based on King. Here you see the village people, they also make those small whistles. based on the zodiac signs, and they are animals, and then you can buy them all. Very nice, and they love that when you do it. And king, he hears the whistle, anything, something to eat. It's not there, but at the end he always found something to eat, some chicken, and then he eat, and then he sleep, and then after when he sleep, he wake up, and then he think, hey, I heard something. Another of my interns was one, and one, she was also charmed by the idea of the circle stories, and she thought, oh, wait a moment, this is so interesting, we can make a series based on day and night, moon, sun. And she had a friend, a Trinlet Flip, and who makes the illustration, but you got an idea. So during the day happens, and when during the night, and sometimes she has very lovely illustrations. So this is the idea of the story. You can, in this case, it's just day and night, but it can be also that you follow somebody who is working with animals, or somebody who is sleeping during the day because they have to go by train during the night. Somebody has also to work at night. So this gives a great opportunity for many stories. She was also working because when she was in the Netherlands to do a study, she met Joke, and Joke has some very funny drawings about the sheep, and then she said, okay, I use those drawings to make a circular story about days and night and the days in the week, because also a circle. There are many ideas for circular stories. Those are the straightaway circular stories. My latest book based on circular stories is quite different. It's this book. It's 6 circular stories based on the street names in Da Nang. I must tell you first that in Vietnam, the names of the streets are named after famous people in the past. People who heroes who give their life for the freedom, to free Vietnam. And well, most people know that the last few thousand years there have been a lot of visitors with other intentions than normal tourists. The Chinese came, the Khmer, the Japanese, the French, the Americans. They all came to do something in Vietnam that was not really nice. So, and there's a lot of people. They were fighting against them. They give their life there for it. It's so interesting that all those people, their names are on the streets. But when we walk around, we see those names. In the beginning, we have no idea that they are names of people till we heard that story. In each case, I was always walking around when I went to have a coffee and sit outside. It's very lovely here in Da Nang. And I saw always those names, and then I knew that they were people who had done something interesting, but I had no idea who they were. So I started to do some research on them. It's not so easy because most of them, they are very famous, but in Vietnam, and they don't have translation in English. You can only find information in Vietnamese about them, and my Vietnamese is very poor. I mean, I can speak Vietnamese, but the Vietnamese do not understand my Vietnamese. So there is a discrepancy between the two. Also often because they think foreigners, they don't know Vietnamese. So when I start to speak Vietnamese, they say, no English, no English, no English. And yeah. And my Vietnamese is also limited because when I start to talk, the others, they never follow the text of the book. So I have a few textbooks to learn Vietnamese, but I never meet people who also know those books. So when I start to say something, they always come with completely different reactions. So well, it's difficult. So now one is making a course Vietnamese, and I hope that will be better. That when I talk that Vietnamese, they will understand it, and because that's based on food, and that's more convenient because food we all know. In each case, I had to translate, but I use Google to translate, of course, and I have some experience in finding things. I'm good in searching, even in other languages. That's from the time that I had a bookshop. I often have to find books in foreign languages for people, and then you develop some abilities to find them. And I found over all those people very good and interesting information. So I choose a walking route, and then each street I found the name of the person, and then I make a short description, and the stories they walk in the next, so that they're always connected somehow with each other, and then it ends again by the first one. So there are also circular stories. And when I was writing, I was very impressed by those people, those young people, often teachers who give their life to educate people in the village. And then in this case of this street, the French didn't like that, because people who can read and talk well and can form their ideas, the French didn't came to Vietnam to educate. Well, they only wanted them to become Christian and to make money for them. So those young people, only 30 years old, they were thrown in jails. Constantly they were thrown in jails, and then mostly they also died there. So those are a bit sad stories, but they're also, not everybody died that young, most of them. There's also a Vietnamese variation of, so my friends still have to correct it. So these circle stories, they have a lot of potential, but in fact they have much more potential, because you see, the last activity we had in the Art for Children gallery of Owen, I didn't tell that, but Owen, she started an Art for Children gallery in Đà Nẵng, because there are children books, there are movies for children and all that, but art for children is very rare. And why not? Yes, why not? They should have art for children. So she started to make art for children. She invited artists, and artists, they work together with the children, and they make art that is interesting for the children, because children have other interests than adults. You can go to a museum and then they tell you, but it's like somebody said, okay, I have a very beautiful book here, it's written by Mr. Fyodor Dostoevsky, and I will explain that to you. That's not a children's book. Children prefer to have Harry Potter. It's also complex, but it's quite different. So art for children is different with art for adults. And she has a gallery, and the last activity we had there was an exhibition with circular stories. And you can see the children, they love to make circles, they love to work for it. And the interesting thing is that circular stories, they have an incredible educational value. You might think it's just a short story, it's just a few pages, and that's it. Yes, that's it, just a few pages. But the educational value of it is incredible. And I will only point out a few aspects of it. At first, something, well, learning, the children have to learn a lot. But learning, it's not one process, there are several processes. It's all a complex of processes. The most famous is, of course, memorizing, because everybody thinks memorizing, that's learning. Well, but even memorizing is already a combination of several processes. You have to first collect, to understand what you're going to memorize. Then you have to find the right form, to put it on the right place, and to develop a right path to it so you can really memorize it. So memorizing is not that simple that just okay and then you no. What happens when you're talking on a circular book and children, they come here, it invites you to go back and here start the process of memorizing already. Here start the process of checking for the children. They will say, oh yes, and then they, but important is, you know that you only see something for the first time, only one time, but it's the same with the second time. You only see it one time for the second time. And the second time, it is very different with the first time, because the first time you don't know, they do not know the story, they do not know what's going on. But the second time they know, and that means the second time they will look at other things. They will also see things, okay, yeah, oh yes, this was like this and this was like that. And because it has patterns in it, and that is another aspect of learning, is it's working with algorithms. In algorithms there are the certain rules we learn, because when you have this, then is that. That's one aspect of learning. Another aspect of learning is working with heuristics, and that is that you learn to adjust algorithms to the new situation. And again, those abilities you can exercise, those skills you can exercise them by, when you walk here you can say, oh look now, he got a flat tire. And then children, no, he doesn't, yeah, he has a flat tire. And then, so you can make a lot of variations, and that is what make circular stories can become so educational. There is also more than those things. That is, we have learned that our brain is more and better. It prefers to predict than to react. React is very passive. Things comes in, we react on it, but our brains prefers to predict, to take the first step ourselves. And that is a skill that is also there. For that, circular books are also so very good, because normal stories, you have a next story after at the end. There's another story. It invites you to come to another story, but it's a new story. And again, children have to listen. Oh yeah. Sometimes there is a little bit about the same figures, but it's always a complete new story. When you have a circle book, it invites you to read the same story again, and you can be sure they will see other things the next time, and they will start to use their own fantasy, because they have the base of the story, and now they can predict a lot of other things. And those are skills that are very important to develop, especially when they're young. And there is even just a last one before my throat will completely destroyed by the air cone. I'm sorry. There is another aspect, and that is that in general we learn too fast. And you might ask yourself, learn too fast? Yes. You see, when children are learning, they do something and then, wow, success is good, so they go on with the next. And that's, in fact, that's wrong. Because learning is an action. And an action has three components. The first is orientation, the second is doing it, and the third one is evaluation, looking back. And looking back is what we often do not do. And that's so sadly, because we often think that because the result is good, that the action was good. But that's not true. The result can be good for many reasons. We always have to check, was the action good? And that's the problem. That's an automatism to look back on what you do. You have to stimulate, to develop that automatism when children are very young. And again, circular books, they give you that automatism, because the second time when they look, they will evaluate what they have seen. Was it true? Did they see? Did they see here how the little bit sunshine? Did they see that it was started to rain? So that's so important to look again. And when they learn it, when they're in a very nice way, they will have a lot of profit later. To learn always to look back, to check whether it was okay what you have learned. So, as you can hear, it's now a little bit the end of my voice. Those are in fact the papers of the Dutch story, because I also done this video in Dutch. I forgot the English text is somewhere over there. What's interesting is the Art for Children Gallery in Đà Nẵng. They develop a lot of this kind of project, and when we work with circular books, it's very easy to adapt it or to adjust it to situations that are needed for children. When, for example, people say, yeah, he's good, but he's always too fast, and then he's not looking back. Well, okay, we use that. There are other learning problems. When we know exactly the learning problems, we can say, okay, we make the activity in a way that we are practicing that, the skills they need for that, to solve that problem, without the children noticing it. They just have a nice day, and they just, it's just what kind of things are you stimulating. That's so important. When children are drawing, you can look at the result. You can also say, wow, I see you are very good in making straight lines that they don't have anything to do with the result, but they were drawing, they took care for a straight line. Other children, they might have nice colors, so you can always give attention to those things that are important. When children are very unsure about things, then you can say like that way. They don't say, oh, you're making very beautiful drawings. No, because the children, they know it's not very beautiful. But when you say, wow, this is so original, you must have things, then it's completely different. Then you do not say that they did something very well that they didn't do. So that's also important. And the gallery, the activities in the gallery, they are focused on that kind of things. Depends on what thing, because sometimes people just come there and the children want to do something funny. But you can find downstairs all the information and the links on Facebook and all those things. Meanwhile, you might think, I'm talking about circular stories. Well, what are circular stories? Maybe I can explain the best with showing one of my own books. This is a book about somebody, it's a monkey, and he has a kite. And a kite goes in the air, but in this time it was a balloon.